Hello petrolheads, it's time to introduce the founder of Car Collection Advisors. Some say his blood is synthetic motor oil, whereas others, they say he starts his day off with a shot of high-octane racing fuel. Now without further ado, please welcome Racer X.
She sips a Coca-Cola.
Welcome back to the channel, petrol heads. Today is Sunday, and you know what that means. We're going to head out to a cool car event and then do some ripping drives afterwards. And I'm going to give a full review on this Ferrari SF90 Assetto Fiorano with the carbon fiber wheels. So without further ado, let's head on out. We're also going to drive this GTR. One of my co-drivers, who's a upcoming pro driver, is going to drive the GTR because I trust him, because he's had a lot of track experience. And this isn't your grandma's GTR. This GTR has a Rentec Stage 1, and it has blow-off valves, it has downpipes, it is tuned, it has filters, and it's putting out well over 700 horsepower. And the torque is monstrous. I think it's 650. It's an animal. It handles amazing, has 10-way traction control. And one of the best features of this GTR is the dual clutch. And what makes it so special is the kickdown and the programming in auto mode. You can race this around a track in either Sport Plus or Race. If you're on a track, Race. If you're on the street, Sport Plus. It will read your foot and downshift. It doesn't upshift into high gears, which is kind of one of the criticisms I have on the SF90. It wants to shift into 7th when you're going 20 miles an hour, and then when you stand on the throttle, it delays, and then you're not kicking down to where you want to be. It should kick right down to 2nd on a roll, and it doesn't quite do that. In manual mode, it's an amazing transmission. It's the programming that needs to be fixed by Ferrari. That's all there is to it. I call a spade a spade. I'm going to show you how this car sounds, because it sounds amazing. The exhaust has 4 outlets. Everyone thinks it just has 2. But this car actually sounds a lot better than the new Black Series, and I think you'll agree with me when you hear it. Somehow the new design of the new motor in the Black Series just doesn't have this hot rod sound, and that's why this car stays in the collection. So this is sport, this is comfort, this is sport, very quiet. There's Sport Plus. Just simply amazing. So without further ado, let's take these 2 cars to Zuma Cars and Coffee. It's an amazing event. You'll see all the cars there. They're going to have the Batmobile. They're going to have the DeLorean and Back to the Future, among other, and a lot of Hypers and Supers. And when we get back, we're going to do a full review on the SF90. So come on, join us for the ride.
That's what you're coming for, but they don't wanna let you in it. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. She sips a Coca-Cola, she can't tell the difference yet. She can't tell the difference yet.
take it. Most of these things I don't wanna say. I won't be around. You wanna hit me up when you make it. You'll try and come back when you fake. I always wanna do it, but it's dangerous. You got something real life basic. You wanna get with me, stop. Y'all's on this side, y'all over on this side. Hey.
Well, we're back from that cool event. Unfortunately, we have some bad news. Our drive was cut short. We weren't able to do our signature tunnel runs or canyon carving, and that's because the SF90 through check engine lights, go to service, electronic control unit failure, and we had Ferrari let us down and we had to end our day. And you know, that is the second time this check engine light situation has manifested itself. The first time, when the car had only 750 miles, did the same thing. I took it to the dealer. The service writer got in the car, saw all the check engine lights and the engine control unit failure. He took it into service. Unfortunately, they let it sit 3 days before they plugged into the ECU to check it. And they called me and said, oh, it fixed itself. How does a car fix itself? Come on, it's ridiculous. So they said, well, we just cleared the computer. We couldn't find a hidden fault, and we don't know what to do. So not real happy. This is a brand new car, and it's under warranty. I even bought the extended warranty. There's no modifications, and that goes to when we talk about what cars to modify and what not to. And my advice was, do not modify hybrids. There's too many electric hybrid wires all around the engine bay. If you modify it and change the exhaust, number one, you're going to avoid your warranty. Number two, you're going to create excess heat and melt wires and wiring harnesses, backup cameras, hybrid wires. And thankfully, I didn't modify it, because I would think my modification caused this check engine gremlin that doesn't want to go away. So now I got to drive this thing or tow it in to service a second time. I took pictures of every, we're going to show you the picture, engine control failure. And we were driving like just putting along on PCH when it reared its ugly head. So that's, in the beginning I told you with car collecting, there's the good, bad, and ugly. This is one of the ugly things, because nothing ruins your day like a check engine light, because you have no confidence in driving the car. What are you going to do, floor it and have the thing blow up or have it catch on fire? So we limped it home, and here it is. Now we'll talk about some of the good of the car and specifications and what this car is all about and how it compares to the other hypercars in my collection, such as the 918 Spider, the Carrera GT, which in its day was the hypercar, the McLaren P1, the GT2 RS, because it has hypercar performance, is considered a hypercar in my book. 765 LT, hypercar. That's not a supercar. That'll run with any hypercar there is. And now let's get into the SF90, and we'll compare it to some of the others. So the SF90, let's talk about its weight, okay? And the manufacturer spec on an Assetto Fiorano dry weight is 3,460. But that's without the carbon wheels, which take off another 30 plus pounds. So you're into the low 3400s, but that's dry. Brooks from Drag Times, who has great content. I'm a subscriber of Brooks. I love his videos. He weighed his. His is not an Assetto, but that thing weighed in at over 3,900 pounds wet. The Assetto is 66 pounds lighter without the carbon wheels. Add the carbon wheels and you're close to 100 pounds. So this wet would be like around 38 something, 38 and some small change. Let's compare it to the McLaren hypercars, the 765 LT, 3,000 pounds, weighed by Brooks as well, maybe 3,020. And so you're talking a good 800 pounds heavier. As 765 LT has a good 800 horse, we know that from dyno runs by Brooks. This car has a combined between the hybrid and the petrol motor of 986, of which 789 is the motor and the balance is electric. And you have 2 electric motors up front on each front wheel and 1 between the tranny and the engine. And what's interesting is the motors for each wheel have the capability of each having 125 horsepower, which would be 250, and another 220 for the rear electric motor, which would be 470, which would bring this into the 1250 horsepower range. But the reason it doesn't have 1250 is because the battery pack only supplies 220 and change. So that's why you get the 986. If there was a battery pack I could shove in there that had 400 horsepower, then it could be delivered to all 3 motors for a combined output of 1,200. And that may be where they're going on the new, like, Speciale one they're talking about with the huge wing on the back. So they're gonna probably use everything the same and just put a more powerful battery pack. Hopefully they offer the battery pack to us who bought this, because the electric motors have the ability, the batteries aren't there. What's an interesting fact about this car, which is kind of cool, is that after 140 miles an hour, the front electric motors disconnect and all the battery power is sent to the rear electric motor between the engine and the transmission. And what that means, which is a good thing, is that you're not losing all that power up front, because the 220 horsepower from the battery pack is now 95% dedicated to the rear. It gives you about it gives about 210 horsepower to the electric motor in the rear. You only lose about 10 horsepower. Whereas in contrast with the 918 Spider, when the front disconnects, you lose at 150 miles an hour, you lose that power. It doesn't get sent to the back. So that is one nice technology feature that Ferrari did really well on the SF90. So back on the all-wheel drive, what's really great about it is when you have this much power, 986 combined horsepower, and so much torque, that you get much better grip. This car still claws and spins all of the tires, even with that much power. And it is extremely fast. This car holds the record at the Fiorano track. It's almost a second faster around Fiorano than a LaFerrari. So from that standpoint, and the acceleration standpoint being much faster than a LaFerrari, and this runs like a 9.4 in the quarter mile. A LaFerrari is like 10.1 maybe. It is a bargain. Instead of $3.5 million for a LaFerrari, a spec like this is around $800,000. So it is a bargain. Some of the quirks on this car have to do with the electronics and the infotainment center. It has a little tiny mouse pad to navigate sources. If the stereo seems to disconnect and go from Bluetooth to another source at times just randomly. And to scroll through to find Bluetooth again, you got to pull over. If you're driving, you're going to have an accident. And it's a very touchy little mouse. Other than that, the interior is beautiful. We'll show you this spec. Has the racing carbon seats. One thing I really like about these is they're adjustable. The backrest goes forward and backwards with the turn of a knob. Now these are manual seats, which I wanted for lightweight. They're carbon. Here's the back of the seat, beautiful. This little lever brings it up. You've got this back waterfall here, all carbon fiber with a nice little shelf, which is just kind of perfect for detailing supplies and things. This car has every carbon option there is. The door panels are completely carbon. I love the steering wheel on Ferraris. The carbon fiber steering wheel with the lights is just beautiful. The paddles are really nice. They're all carbon. I think Ferrari has one of the best steering wheels. Some people criticize all the controls and buttons on the steering wheel, but I like it. It's from a race car driver's perspective, it's good. You know, you're not going to like hit the turn signal and turn your windshield wipers on. You know, the turn signal is a dedicated little push button. So I think it's great. Like I said, there's a lot of great things about this car. The carbon fiber wheels are so light, the steering feel on this car feels like the car's 2,500 pounds. And this, with the Assetto, which is key, is the suspension. This car has the Multimatic titanium springs, which if you pull the wheel off, they look like jewelry. And in this particular spec, you can't have an engine lift. I mean, a front lift. The front nose lift you don't get with the Multimatic Assetto package, and that's why a lot of people didn't go for them. What I did is I put little skid pads under here, but I haven't even hit anything. As you can see, look at this ground clearance. This is factory. I'm not going to lower it. It rides beautifully. It's almost like a luxury car. It feels like an S-Class Mercedes in an Italian suit with 1,000 horsepower. So these are some of the great things about this car. That's amazing. We went in and out of driveways today. You saw us going to the car meet. Never scraped once. You don't need the lift, and that saves weight. On a hybrid, you want to save weight wherever you can because they're porky. Okay, now let's go, we'll look at the 918. Okay, these have lifts. Well, this has a lift. The Carrera GT doesn't, but it's lower. My hand on the ground touches the bottom, so you have less ground clearance, so you need the lift. The Carrera GT, that's about the lowest. Again, super low. You barely get 4 fingers under it. GT2 RS. So those cars need lifts. So you don't, in my opinion, you don't want an SF90 without the Assetto. It's night and day difference. It is a race car driver's dream in terms of suspension. This is the car that set the record at Anglesey. Fastest car around there by far. So this is a track monster. The SF90 that Chris Harris drove that wasn't an Assetto Fiorano, he didn't like it. And I don't blame him. Soft suspension, doesn't have the good springs, has the lift. It's not the same car. You do not want to get this car, in my opinion, and just, it's my opinion, in a Spider. Let me tell you why. One of the negatives of this car is it doesn't have a carbon tub. So what does that mean? Well, number one, it's heavier. This has an aluminum tub. And once you cut the roof off, you have too much flex. So Ferrari had to reinforce it to the tune of a 220-pound weight deficit as opposed to the coupe in a non-Assetto version. That's just comparing a Fiorano Spider to a Fiorano coupe. Now take the Assetto Fiorano weight off and the carbon weight off. You're 330 pounds lighter in this car than a Spider Fiorano. This car's way faster. handles way better. This is the car to get. Now, that's the benefit of carbon tubs in 918, Carrera GT, P1, 765 LT, all carbon tubs. The 765 LT weighs 3,020 pounds. It's 20 pounds heavier, not 220, than the LT coupe. So of course you would get that in a Spider. You have the best of every world. So that's my honest review of the SF90. And Ferrari, you got to help me out here. You got to fix this ECU gremlin. And this has been happening not just to me, but I see him on YouTube with 296 GTVs. CarWow just did a review and his 296 couldn't even make it down the track. He had the hybrid system failing every 5 minutes. You need to fix this. Your dealers need to know how to fix it. You need to put in a revised computer in these cars. So anyway, that's my honest review. Hey, I don't sugarcoat anything. I love a lot of things about the car, but my worst day is having a check engine light. I mean, I'm not happy. But hey, I love cars. I had fun today, and now I got to drive next week to the dealer or tow it, and it's a shame to have to do this to such a beautiful car. Anyway, until the next video, I'm having such a bad day, I'm not going to do my normal racing tip. We'll save that for the next one. So anyway, au revoir, petrol heads, and until we meet again.